International standards are absolutely pivotal to supporting global trade. For countries such as Ecuador and also Australia, we are very reliant on global trade flows, and it's important for our business communities in both countries to engage internationally. So really, in essence, international standards are the passport to doing business. And with international standards, it actually enhances market opportunities for exporters and also importers. So it plays a vitally important role in supporting global trade. International standards provide a real positive impact for consumers. It allows consumers to make really good choices about the sort of products and services that they want to purchase. And knowing that companies have used international standards gives the market confidence for consumers to make better buying decisions. So as an example, if you're looking at food products, you want to make sure that companies are utilising the ISO 22000 series on food management safety systems. It's those sort of areas where it can make a big difference. So consumers, through the ISO, have been represented through a group called COPALCO, the Consumer Policy Committee. They do some great work. So one of the areas where Australia has provided a leadership role is in the area of unit pricing. So as an example, for Ecuadorian consumers that are going into their local supermarket, and again for Australian consumers, it was previously hard for us to determine what are you getting value for money comparing one product with another product. So in Australia, we've rolled out and implemented unit pricing. What that means is that consumers can take two products, actually look at them and check what is the price per their weight. And based on that situation, you can know as to how much you're actually paying. So that's been work that Australia has led, both here domestically, but also that we've taken internationally. And the work at unit pricing through the ISO has been a real positive game changer for consumers. That's just one good example of where ISO and Australia has worked side by side to develop global robust standards to support better outcomes for consumers. Services is really the new emerging area in global trade. What we're seeing increasingly is a proliferation of services, mainly SMEs, but services are now underpinning global trade. So for an example, as an economy such as Australia, services now constitute over 70% of our gross domestic product. What that means is that as markets look at lower cost manufacturing centres, there's been a major shift in economies such as Australia, moving from a product and agricultural based economy to a services economy. So again, international standardisation in the services area is absolutely business critical for countries such as Australia if we want to gain market accesses overseas. So as an example, if an Australian architect wants to work with a Malaysian company in terms of provision of architectural services, it's international cross-border data standards that support that situation. So we're going to see a growth of health services offshore, ICT, information communication and technology standards, a whole range of different areas, education services, all supported by good international standards.
We started by allocating a dedicated resource. Now that really made a difference because that person was then freed up to concentrate their efforts fully on developing international adoptions, identical adoptions. This was something that really made a difference because it freed up that person to focus their efforts fully on developing identical adoptions rather than having to juggle a full workload of other project types. And in doing this, we were able to move the projects forward and publish them in a much shorter time frame, which effectively halved the international adoption process, as it were.
Standards development is a long process. It's a very resource-intensive process for us as a standards body, but also for the experts who sit on the committee. And project management, to me, really is about using people's time and energy as effectively as we can. We don't want our committee members to spend long periods of time working on issues which aren't important. We want them working on the work that's going to give them the output that they want. We want them working on the issues which are going to improve things for industry, that are going to help people get their jobs done. That's the basic aim of any project management exercise. So using people's time well, getting the right outcome, and during a project, staying on track, making sure that you are getting the work done that you need to get to the end goal. If we were doing these projects for 2 weeks, maybe you wouldn't need it. The projects for standards development go for normally a few years. That needs some coordination. So project management techniques are really important to keep all of that on track. I think it also allows us to coordinate well with our partners in government and industry. If we can give them certainty about timeframes and how much work is going to be involved, we can integrate with regulations and legislation. Industry bodies can depend on certain starting dates and certain material. That helps them to bring the standard into effect much more smoothly. Our communication around the projects can also be a lot more effective because we have some certainty about when the work will be finished, when it will reach certain stages. There's a lot of benefits. As time goes on, we understand more and more what factors help committees get work done and what factors get in the way. Sometimes that's not clear at the start of a project. We are getting better at estimating how much work is going to be involved and how long the work is going to take. Standards development is not, it's not a very common process worldwide. There's only one standards body in most countries. There's not a long history of projects that we can look back on and model ourselves on. Standards bodies, to a large extent, have to invent their own project management approach that suits the processes they're working to. So I think the improvement will be refining what we already do, but also learning from other industries which do similar work to learn how they've improved their project management. I think the other part that will improve is that the experts we work with, the industries and committees that we work with, will become more accustomed to working with a project in mind to apply the same sorts of systems and discipline that they use in their own work, in their own industries. Often standards development in different countries has a reputation of involving a lot of discussion, a lot of iterations of talking around in circles without being well organised. Well, if we're doing project management well, that perception will change, and that will help everybody to keep building on how well we do that project management. I think it's important to understand what process you're working on. It's important to understand that project management is not the same as process management. The process that you use will be different to develop a national standard or an international standard. Different bodies have different steps in their development process. Different forms need to be filled out at different points. None of that is project management. That's just making sure that the right information is approved in the right way at the right time. Project management is about understanding what you need to do, who's going to do it, and when. If you focus on that, if you focus on how to recognise what the tasks are, what the outcomes need to be, then you'll be able to apply the normal project management tools which are used in industries worldwide and apply it to your own work. It has made a big difference to how we work at Standards Australia, and there's no reason to think it can't work for any other standards body. I think one of the significant items is to communicate effectively to everyone who's going to be involved. This is not something that can be created by one person. You need an entire group of people to recognise that it's the right way to work and to buy in to working that way. Once they do, it's really effective. If the only one who's trying to think as a project manager is the person coordinating the committee. If the experts don't understand what's happening, it won't work. In fact, it will probably make things worse because there'll be miscommunication constantly. If everybody's on the same page with similar expectations about how the work will happen, it's very effective.
It's absolutely imperative for countries such as Australia to develop really good bilateral relationships with countries such as Ecuador. We have a lot in common. We have some very key challenges together, and through our involvement at ISO and also the International Electrotechnical Commission, countries such as Australia and Ecuador can make a real difference. It's also important that we work together collaboratively, both at the ISO and the IEC, within COPANT and also within PASC, to make a difference. So it's vitally important that our two economies have further interaction and engagement.